thelandofisrael.com and Israel National TV present Ari Abramowitz and Jeremy Gimpel. Live from the heart of Israel, it's Tuesday Night Live in Jerusalem.
You know, it's not every night that we do the show, and it's not every night that we do the show that we are honored to have a very prominent Jerusalem rabbi and a world-renowned historian wrapped up into one guest, but tonight we do. And we have so much to ask him and so little time, so we're going to try to keep it very concise, but just let me tell you, he's the founder and director of the Destiny Foundation. They have audio tapes, books, seminars, tours, and some incredible documentaries which really reveal some of the secrets that have kept the Jewish people alive for 4,000 years. So please join me in welcoming Rabbi Berel Wein.
You're a historian and a rabbi. And we've had historians on before, we've had rabbis on before, but we have not yet had a rabbi that is also a historian. So here's the first question. At the end of the book of Devarim, as the Torah is coming to a close, Hashem commands the Jewish people, Zechor Yemot Olam, Binu Shno Dor Vador. Remember the days of old, understand the occurrences of generation to generation. Why would God command us to learn our own history?
Well, there are a few reasons. One reason is that King Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. The truth of the matter is that every problem that we face today has been faced before. Whether that's comforting to us or not, I don't know, but at least the fact that we know that it has happened before should give us some strength, because obviously we've survived those problems. And the second reason is that you need a backdrop. I always feel that history is our rear view mirror, right? If you drive in traffic and you never look in the rear view mirror, you know, you just pull out. So you're blindsided by a lot of things that happen, especially by the car that you didn't see. But if you're looking in the rear view mirror, if you have an idea of where you come from, how you got here, why we're here, etc., you can navigate it much more safely. The Torah wants the Jewish people to realize that this is a story that's 3,700 years old. It didn't begin now. And it's not dependent upon people or movements so much as it's dependent upon the flow of history. And we're part of that flow. And if you see it that way, so then I think you're in a much better position to handle the problems.
Well, Rabbi Wein, when we look back at that history, you know, we know that Hashem is good, and that we're his Am Segula, his treasured people that he loves. But it really seems that pain and persecution has been more the rule than the exception throughout Jewish history. Why is that the case?
You know, in the Sorbonne, they had an examination for PhD degree. And the examiner wrote on the board, there's only one question. And that question is why? And there were only two correct answers. One is because, and the other is why not. You can't ask why, because then we would be able, so to speak, to read God's mind, so to speak, and we can't do that. A special people has a special history. Special history is not always happy and not always positive. The Jewish people, to a great extent, have always been the canary in the mine. What happens to us happens to the rest of the world a little later. And so that's, you know, it's tough being the firstborn child, right? It's tough having all of those problems. But I don't know the answer to why. I think all the great rabbinic scholars over the ages have always avoided why, because that's really an unanswerable question. However, if we know all of the troubles that we've gone through, and we know all of the pain, So to a certain extent, we know all of our mistakes also. Einstein said insanity is doing the same thing over and over again when it didn't work the first time. So again, that's the problem. The problem is we've seen all of these troubles. So what lesson have we learned from it? If we don't learn any lessons, then God forbid they repeat themselves.
Well, I'll tell you, when I look back at the history of the Jewish people, it's so long, we have so many holidays, but I think one of my current historical ironies that I love the most is that in our times here in Israel, the most popular and celebrated holidays are the ones that are founded on principles which are really antithetical to so many of the people that are celebrating them. When we look at Hanukkah, we're celebrating the Maccabees, who nowadays would be considered extremists who wouldn't yield to Western Hellenism. And really, Mordechai and Purim was the same idea. He wouldn't bow to Haman. A lot of people blamed him for the decree to begin with. If we were to look back at our times, a couple hundred years from now, who would be the heroes of our times?
Except for me?
Nope, that's the answer.
Well, in all seriousness, our generation is a heroic generation. There are certain times when the people certain individuals are more than their generation. And then there are certain times when the generation is more, the whole is greater than the parts. Our generation is a heroic time. A generation of people who survived the Holocaust and rebuilt their lives, people who have fought to preserve the state of Israel through so many wars, people that emigrated from Russia, hundreds of thousands of people. Our generation is a very heroic generation.
Well, I think, that's your generation. What about our generation?
I'm in your generation. Listen, every generation creates their own heroes. That's the truth. And many times the people that are in the minority, you mentioned Mordechai, you mentioned the Maccabees, they never had a majority, right? They didn't have 61 seats in the Knesset. And history has the last vote, so to speak, but history doesn't vote till 100 years later or 200 years later. We look back now, sometimes people who were thought to be heroes turn out to be villains, and some people who were vilified turn out to be heroic. So it's very hard to make these judgments, but there's no question that every generation has its heroes. The whole dor v'dor, in every generation we have heroes, and this generation is no exception.
You were saying that we'd be able to look at the past, see the blueprint of the past, realize the mistakes that happened, and then hopefully fix the future. If we could assimilate all of the lessons of the past, what should the Jewish people be doing today?
Well, they should be more Jewish. If history has taught us anything, it has taught us that those who thought that they could escape the Jewish destiny by not being Jewish, by being people, people of the world, being humanitarians, etc., all of that turned to ashes, literally ashes. So one thing is to be more Jewish. The second thing, there are two main questions that appear in the Bible. One is after the golden calf, Moshe says, "Who is for God? Come to me." That question reverberates throughout Jewish history. Who is for God? And the second question is, when Joshua came to the land of Israel for the first time, the first Jewish conquest of the land of Israel, he sees an angel. He doesn't know it's an angel. He sees a man in front of him with a sword. And he turns to him and he said, "Are you on my side or not? Are you on our side or not?" That question reverberates again in the Jewish world. You're either for us, and if you're not for us, then God forbid you're against us. and everybody has to make an accounting on those two questions. And every generation has to make an accounting on those two questions. And I think that that's what Jewish history teaches us.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Destiny Films presents a short preview of its latest documentary in the Faith and Faith series. A New Beginning, 1948 to 1957. 1948 was the major turning point in modern Jewish history. Miraculously, just 3 years after the Holocaust, the Jewish people re-established sovereignty over their ancestral homeland, Israel. Through leading historians in modern, Jewish, and world history, as well as revealing interviews with eyewitnesses, A New Beginning dramatically tells the behind-the-scenes stories of the War of Independence, the dislocation of 850,000 Jewish refugees from Arab lands, and the trauma and losses they suffered. It explores the real reasons for the ongoing Muslim aggression against the Jewish state. And it takes us back 14 centuries to Muhammad and the sources of the present-day conflict. The film also covers the early struggles of the establishment of Israel and how the state doubled its population in the first 3 years of its fragile existence. The plight of the Palestinian refugees, caught in the crossfire between 5 Arab armies determined to destroy Israel, and the Jews fighting for their survival. You will also see the beginnings of the Cold War between the Soviets and the West, and the shift of power in the Middle East, culminating in the Suez Crisis, where Britain and France, aided by Israel, attacked their former ally Egypt over its nationalization of the Suez Canal. Against all this, you will see the contrasting challenges facing the Jews in America and their fellow Jews in the Soviet Union. The thread that runs throughout A New Beginning and the Faith and Faith series is the very human story of the impact of history on the lives of ordinary people. Faith and Faiths, A New Beginning, 1948 to 1957. A Berel Wein Destiny production. Directed by Ashley Lazarus.
It is truly my honor now to present really one of the foremost advocates of Aliyah in the entire world. He's the director of Israel National Radio. He coined the term Aliyah Revolution. Incredible guy, incredible Jew, Yishai Fleischer.
Ari, we're talking about Aliyah tonight. I want to do a shout out to my brother Joshua, who is
Here?
He's here and he's been in this land for a year on Aliyah, and he's going to the Israeli army on Monday.
Wow, let's see Joshua, where is he? Go ahead.
I got a strange story for you, but it comes from the heart, okay? It was Yom Kippur Eve. Yom Kippur, just before Yom Kippur. I was getting ready in the house, running around, cleaning up the house, and I had to get to the mikveh, the ritual bath. Jews, we like to go to the mikveh Friday afternoons, but certainly before Yom Kippur, it's our most important day to go and get cleansed before we stand in front of God. And I was a little bit late. It's about 20 minutes to Kol Nidre. I get in the car. I fly down to the mikveh. I ran to the mikveh, the ritual bathhouse. I get there. I slam my hand down on the handle, and it's locked. It's locked. And I was just like, locked. How could it be locked? What could I do? I look, my eyes clear. I see the sign that it says it's only open until 5 o'clock. Oh my God, I missed it. Where can I go? What time is it? Can I still make it to another mikveh? They're probably closed too. I realized I missed it. I was about to go into Yom Kippur without going to the mikveh. I was not spiritually prepared for that. I sat down a bit ashamed, a bit embarrassed, already thinking of excuses to my wife, telling her I didn't, I screwed up. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute, there's a mikvah kelim, a dish ritual bath here. And I'm thinking, my first thought was, wait a minute, maybe I'll just take like a wash cup and put it, wash my hands and my feet, like biblical times, wash your hands and feet. Then I'm like, wait a minute, I lifted out the tub out of there. I'm like, there's plenty of water here. And I jumped in the mikvah kelim. I got out of the ritual.
I hope you went in feet first.
I don't want to say. I jumped into the ritual bath for the dishes, got out, and I looked up to the heavens and I said, thank you, God. Thank you so much for not making me distant from you, for letting me get close to you. I can't believe you did such a miracle for me. And the next minute, another Jew pulls up and he goes, is the mikvah still open? I said, come here, I got to show you something. Now, why do I tell you this story today? Because we're talking about Aliyah. And people say to me a lot of times, they say, Yishai, where does it say in the Torah, in the Bible, where does it say that you have to make Aliyah? So I could quote to them one of the myriad of verses, the thousands of verses that talk about the centrality of the land of Israel, about how important it is, about how Abraham walked in this land, how all the forefathers were here, how they were buried here. But you know what I say to them? I say the verse that tells every Jew that he should make Aliyah is V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha, b'chol nafshecha, u'b'chol meodecha. You should love your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and all of your worldly possessions. Because when you love somebody or something, you want to be close to them. You want to be close to God. Do you want to be close to God? Do you love Him? If you do love Him, you want to be here. There's no other place. Because God resides in Jerusalem. And therefore, when you love Him, and that's why I jumped in the mikvah kelim, because I love God. And if you're not so good with the God thing yet, then you should love your nation. And you should love your land. And you should love your country. There isn't one day that goes by in this country that I don't say to myself, I love this place. I love this people. I love this land. I love this God. And when you say that to yourself, then you know that you've got to be here. So Bezrat Hashem, with the help of God, we will merit to come here, to make Aliyah be'ahava, with lots of love, and we will thereby fulfill the destiny of the Jewish people and the mission of the world.
A couple of weeks ago, I was in my house, and all of my nieces and nephews, all 5 of them, were over in my house with my 3 children. My brother lives right next door, and so the cousins are really growing up more like brothers and sisters. My wife is in the middle of the room, and an acquaintance of mine walks into the house and sees what can only be described as chaos. There's 8 children running around. The oldest one is the age of 10, and he gives me that look. You know, that look of, okay, I see what's happening here. One of those religious families with large families. And he's kind of quiet. We walk into the car, and we get in the car, and he says, Jeremy, I want to be frank with you. I don't understand these religious families that have these massive families. It seems to me like it doesn't make any sense. I mean, there's no freedom. You come to your house, there's all this noise. You can't go on vacation. It doesn't seem like a life of fulfillment. How could your wife possibly have a career and reach her potential? I mean, is that really a life that's worth living? It doesn't make any sense. Why have such a big family? And I explained to him, of course, that, well, it was 5 of my nieces, my wife. We have 3 children. She, of course, is an attorney working on wonderful cases here for children and battered women. And I said, but the truth is, I plan on having as many children as God gives me. And I said, I want you to know, I want you to know that if there's anything that I ever tell you that you're going to remember, let this be it. You're looking at the entire situation wrong. Imagine if you were looking at a high-powered executive, and this executive was going through all of his assets. And he, of course, works way longer than an overtime or a full-time job, but he's going through his foreign investments, and he's going through his commodities and his real estate developments, and he's a partner in a venture capital fund. People would look at that man and admire his commitment. Some people would even envy the amount of assets that he's been able to acquire throughout his career. I said, I want you to understand that to us, our children, they're our assets. They're our assets. We invest in them. We mold them. We guide them. We give our souls to them. And as many as God gives us, the greater they are, the greater our success, the greater the dividends. The only reason to know Jewish history is to enhance the Jewish future. All of us today in this room and all of us around the world, it's incumbent upon us. We are responsible for the next generation to reconnect them to Jewish history, to reconnect them to their Jewish identity. And through learning our Jewish history, we'll propel them towards our Jewish destiny. Shalom from Jerusalem.
נפשנו חיכתה להשם בעזרנו מגננו 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 נפשנו חיכתה להשם עזרנו 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 מגננו צו ישראל קומה קומה בעזרת ישראל 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 יהודה וישראל ובדי נאמך יהודה וישראל אוי 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 ובני חינומך יהודה וישראל ובני חינומך יהודה וישראל ובני חינומך יהודה